baby girl, daughter, sister, girlfriend, fiancé, wife, cousin, mother, auntie, grandmother, great grandmother, elder, disappears, shattering, a family, a community, the world. There is something we can all do. Remember them.
Hello, my friends. Happy Wootens Day to you. I hope today has been amazing and that this week is going just the way you planned. This is a wonderful thing. There are boundless opportunities and beauty all around us. And so it's a wonderful thing when we stop and maybe note those things. What a wonderful way to really interpret our world. Today, as always, for those of you who have liked, followed, and subscribed, whether it be here on Sporks Mall in the morning on Billy Sneak, or you've actually visited New Reality TV, where you've witnessed and subscribed and liked and loved and done all the secret handshakes to subscribe to New Reality for Whispers of the Norse, obviously a weekly show that we put together, hopefully about topics that will resonate with you in such a way that you really are able to obtain some level of intellect or imagery or emotional state that you've been looking for to help fill the void in your evolutionary journey along your spiritual path. Today, we want to say thank you to James in Minnesota. James, thank you so much for your question. And it's a wonderful question, by the way. James, your shirt over there. Yep, there it is. Your shirt is on its way. We will put that in the mail first thing tomorrow, so you'll have it in the next couple of days. Hopefully, you'll wear it and get out there and be seen and just really enjoy because I really enjoyed your question, and I'm very thankful that you took the time to send me some question. So, let's talk about James' question. What is James' question? Well, James' question is, what are our ancestors really? Who are they? Who are our ancestors? Well, there's two answers to this question, and we'll cover the first one first, obviously, because it's the easiest. And that is our blood relatives, obviously our ancestry, our physical body's ancestry. When we talk about, children of children and grandchildren of great-grandchildren of great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren, all of these are descendants of our ancestors. So even our elders are our ancestors, and they're still here. What a great opportunity. Ooh, get some of that knowledge, get some of that intellect and that wisdom and experience that they have acquired over their lifetimes. What a great opportunity. So, the physical realm and the physical body has a biological DNA trace or an ancestry. And that ancestry is a wonderful blend of all different peoples. Many peoples throughout, you're talking thousands of years. So many different blends and many different types of people. So wonderful, a collection of different cultures, of different personalities, of different, just everything. So that's really in your physical form's DNA. It is what makes you, you, all right? Makes your physical form who it is. Now, the second channel of our ancestors is a little bit bigger, and that is the ancestors of the spirits. Now, when we speak about the ancestors in the spirit realm, the spirit realm doesn't have bloodlines. It doesn't have families. It doesn't have geological regions. None of that exists anymore. So in the spiritual realm, anyone who's there is an ancestor, right? So they have experiences at which to share with us. So it's a matter of us reaching out, much the same way that we would reach out for our physical ancestors, so too can we reach out for our spiritual ancestors. Now, a lot of people kind of my ancestors were my ancestors, and they were, of this culture, and they didn't intermingle with. Yeah, okay, that's in the physical realm, right? That's physical realm. Spiritual realm, there isn't any of that. There is no bloodline, right? There is no connections whatsoever to other spiritual entities other than, that's right, the energy contained within our emotional state. That's how we communicate in the spiritual realm. It's not by bloodline. It's not by our contact list. It is purely by feeling our way through the spiritual realm. It's using emotion, and it's embracing emotion for what it offers us. The education, the enlightenment, the growth, the evolution. All of these things are really stem from evolution, from this energy of our ancestry. Now, in the past, we've kind of talked about the two selves. We've talked about us being constructed in the same way that the atomic structure is put together, right? So for those of you who haven't heard that show, I completely understand. I didn't understand it before I started along my journey of learning. But think of an atom, of which there are a lot that make up you. Your atom is split into three parts: a proton, a neuron, and an electron. Now, the proton and the neutron, they join together, okay? And they become what's called the nucleus. This is your physical existence. So, to use that as an analogy, we find sensory input and emotional input as our two sources of what makes us us. Okay? So when you think about us as an atom, there's equal parts of your physical sensory input and your emotional energy creation. Mixed, same parts, right? So that makes up your nucleus or your physical form. It's what makes you you. Floating on the outside of this nucleus is an electron. Now, the electrons are not bonded to the nucleus. They kind of roam free, doing their own thing. This really is the spiritual realm when we think of it in that analogy. The electron is not bonded to the nucleus at all. It's freestanding. And it collects and connects to other atoms, to other atomic structures, right? So it blends together. So your electron is what joins your spiritual self to other spirits all around us, right? The same thing applies in our existence. We have our physical side, which is both our sensory input and our emotional state creation. And we have our spiritual side, or our spiritual self. Our spiritual self is connected to the spiritual realm all the time, nonstop, right? So it's always communicating back and forth in much the same way that your physical brain takes in sensory input. Your spiritual brain takes in its own form of input. I would call it sensory input, but it's really not sensory. It's more out there, right? So we're getting input from the spiritual realm into our spiritual self. Now, where do these two meet? They meet in this thing in your brain called memories. That's where they join, right? So each part of yourself has access to memories. Sometimes you note, probably, if you're like me, getting a little long in the beard there, you probably notice that there are some things in our physical brain that we just don't have access to that memory like we used to, right? A couple of things slipping here and there. The good news is your spiritual side, your spiritual self, never has that, never experiences that, because they don't have the same transmission lines that your physical self does. Your physical self is kind of required to, firstly, it has to take sensory input and it has to convert it to bioelectricity that's going to send over your optic nerve through obviously the first wash of imagination, which is always feeding into our sensory input. Then it's going to go into the mood ring. Into the mood ring, then it's going to drop into the well of the self. Well of the self is then going to convert that energy into biochemistry of the body. Now that biochemistry's got to work its way up. It's going to come up. And as it's coming through the transmission there, if you will, it's kind of susceptible to whatever is in our bodies at the time. So think of maybe too much meat, or too much maybe marijuana or peyote, or maybe even a certain kind of foods, right? Certain diets. Okay, we know from science, and this is in the book, so I'm not going to debate it or argue it because it's not debatable, arguable. Anyway. We know that humankind, bipedal humans, atomical modern humans, left Africa somewhere around 154,000 years ago, give or take. Now, there's a whole bunch of argument within the archaeological world about when humankind really absorbed, began this whole cognitive thought thing. So there's a lot of arguments. Some say it happened soon after that departure from Africa. Others say up to about 54,000 years ago is when we started having, of course. It means ultimately that we just have more synapses within the brain. The brain got a little bigger. And those synapses are methodologies of communication back and forth. They allow for interconnectivity between data points. And this is really the matrix that we talk about when we want to identify this thing called wisdom, is across these synapses, right? So we can go in every direction. Whee! And that allows for all these data towers, if you will, to kind of intercommunicate with each other and interrelate. So if you have something, if we're talking about automobiles, right, and then there's a synapse goes over that way to cars. Why? Because cars is a unique thing in and of itself, but it's still connected back to automobiles. So it's related. And so your brain does all this. And the way it does that is using these synapses, being able to transmit energy over these synapses in a closest route possible, right? So that's why we got so many. Super important that we understand, though, that as that energy is being transmitted across those synapses and across our nerve cells, even in our body, there are these gaps, and they're located everywhere, right? And they're minuscule. You might be able to see them with a microscope, but other than that, you'd be struggling. And they're little bitty spaces, and what happens is, and it's called the synaptic cleft, by the way, in case we'll get that out of the way. So the synaptic cleft is a gap between nerve cells. And what happens is we get some energy that's forming up behind it, and it's going to help communicate or push our electrical signal across that gap to the other side, where it'll then continue on its journey to the next synaptic cleft. And again, more energy will come in, push it along its way, so on and so forth. Now, depending on what's in the body, that synaptic cleft, that little bitty space, of which there are many, as I said, may be more resistant to energy transmission. So if we're very, we'll say, heavy on the mead, we may note that our fingers don't have the same feeling, or the feeling takes a little longer when, we touch something, right? Because that signal that's coming from the finger, the touch, coming through the finger, all the nerve cells, all in here, are going to come up, and all the while, they're crossing over these synaptic clefts. Well, the synaptic clefts may have more resistance in them based on what's in the body, i.e., as we mentioned, a little bit more mead than maybe we should have, and we get this kind of slowdown of signaling, and that's what causes that, right? So what happens is this energy will eventually come from the well of the self, and it'll percolate up, according to my ancestors. It'll percolate up to where it's actually fills into the horn of feeling. Now, the horn of feeling is essentially a drinking horn, okay? And in the drinking horn, the hole that the biochemistry is coming up in and going to fill in is about halfway up the mug, okay? Now it's sealed, so it can't back. Anyway, so the hole goes in into the side of the mug, and at the bottom we may have inauthentic thoughts, inauthentic biochemistry that was created, and that inauthentic is when we are acting outside of our authentic self. We're pretending. All right. Now, there's levels of this, but anyway, as we create this this apathy, this just disregard for our authentic self, we create a different kind of biochemistry, and that biochemistry is going to come up and it's going to fill up half the horn. So now, when the cup is empty and the biochemistry comes in, think of it as root beer. It's my favorite analogy. Not because I like root beer, but because of the way root beer acts when it's in the mug. It's the same kind of idea as we pour the root beer into the horn, what do we get? We get a little bit of soda, right at the bottom, but then we get the foam that starts building up. Now, this is the conversion process that I'm talking about. This is converting biochemistry into energy. Now, ultimately, all of the soda will go away. It'll all become foam eventually. All right. So within a matter of instants, all of the soda will evaporate into foam. Now, you've got this filler coming in, and what happens as this foam is expanding up the horn, we have a little bit of space that's reserved at the top of the horn, what we call our cognitive space. Now, the cognitive space allows us to control the explosion of energy. So as the foam is coming up the horn, we just kind of stick a finger in it and kind of keep dropping it down so that it doesn't overflow, right? Very much like we would do with our root beer. So we're kind of keeping it tamped down until eventually the energy kind of goes where it's supposed to go, on to the next step. That's the idea of the cognitive space. Now, what happens most frequently is that we get this real quick rise of energy into the horn, and it spills over. It spills over the sides. When it spills over the sides, this is when you're going to see or witness physiological symptoms. Rapid heart rate, sweaty palms, maybe sweaty armpits, all those different things, jittery, who knows, panic attacks, anxiety attacks. All of these things are going to be driven when that foam overruns the mug or overspills the horn. All right, so then it's actually touching parts of the brain, and that part of the brain has no idea what to do with this energy, so it just fires off what it's supposed to do, whatever it's supposed to do, and in this case, creates an anxiety attack, sweaty, a rapid heart rate, whatever it is, right? So that part of the brain is triggered, and it then does what it does, okay? And all of that rests outside of this horn of feeling, all right? So our job is to obviously manage that. But the key here is to understand that, firstly and foremost, as the back to the mood ring, as it drops energy of our experience into our well of the self, our will of the self has our virtues, values, and belief systems that are all going to add or detract from that energy stream coming down. It's going to manipulate it, modify it. So by the time it gets all the way through and it's created in the biochemistry, what's created in the biochemistry may not be what you experienced, may not be what you originally saw. because now it's way different. Why? Because you now have an emotional attachment of something that's in that experience that's now changing the way you see that experience. So if you say, if you witnessed a car accident and the car that was in the accident was your favorite car ever, you would have a different emotional response than just watching any car crash. Okay? You're going to be more emotionally invested. And that's where the well of the self is kind of putting in this energy into the experience that you're having. It's a big thing to understand. Our ancestors are guiding the creation of those values, virtues, and belief systems. They are the ones that have either A, given them to us through in our childhood. We're pretty easy to take stones from other people. And so we kind of build, based on their virtues and their values and their belief systems, we kind of build ours. And then we kind of, over the years, we're going to structure it a little differently, and we're going to twist and tort and throw things out and put things in and kind of make it our own, is what eventually we're going to do. But the ancestors are the ones that set that. And the ancestors, your blood ancestors, are in your DNA, which is part of this well, right? So that's established. The size of the well, the depth of the well, and all those things are established using our DNA. All right, so that's how the ancestors are tied in. Now, when we talk about spiritual ancestors, and we talk about ancestors who have ventured beyond the physical realm, they have returned home to their spiritual realm, it's not as big a deal if there is a physical blood relative to that individual. Does that make sense? If they're ancestors and they're in the spiritual realm now, blood really has no value. Blood relatives don't hold as much value there, right, as they do here in the physical realm. So understand the difference there. All right, I got to take a real quick commercial. My peeps are yelling at me here. I got to take a quick commercial, and when I come back, I want to talk about how we can implement ways to recognize and embrace our ancestors in our modern day life. I'll be right back.
The time is now.
We're all waking up.
We're waking up.
We're all waking up.
It's all shifting.
New vibrations.
It's you.
It's you.
It's me.
It's all of us.
Together.
A new time.
A new day.
A new energy.
A new energy.
A new reality.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
Awaken with us.
NewRealityTV.com.
All right. Thank you for taking that quick moment. As always, I am so proud to be affiliated and associated with my friends and family at New Reality TV, a wonderful streaming channel dedicated to a plethora of perspectives along our spiritual path. So check them out, newrealitytv.com. Okay, so let's talk about how and why we use our ancestors in today. Okay? Well, the first thing that we're going to glean from our grandparents, our great-grandparents, and our ancestry, and our physical blood ancestry, is this sense of pride, a sense of honor, and just really supporting what they believed in, what they understood to be the truth, what they understood as the way forward, right? We really need to embrace that for our own peace of mind. Why? Because there's a feeling that comes with embracing our ancestry of connected. I grew up my whole life believing that myself, my brother, and my mother were the end of our family line. That was it. That was all there was. And it wasn't until many years later that my mother got involved in genealogy and would kind of draw me in on that, where I would learn I had cousins all over the place. I had cousins, real life cousins. I had other family members. And this was very enlightening for me. But more importantly, for the first time in my life, to my memory anyway, I had family. I was connected. It wasn't me by myself anymore. All right? So I felt connected again. This is the same feeling we're going to get when we start reading about and, certainly understanding our own blood ancestry. Now, as I mentioned before, when we cross into the spiritual realm and we're dealing with spirits and the deities and the like, there's not as much call for blood relatives. Now, that's not to say that you can't find individuals in the spiritual realm who lived a physical life who were indeed a blood relative. Happens all the time. I've met quite a few of mine. So, I mean, that it's very possible. And in the same way, that's providing us this connectivity. We're connected. And in some cases, in my case, I'm connected to a very long history, a long, esteemed, a beautiful heritage and culture and pride in that. And so I've really embraced it. And again, I went and got t-shirts that said it. I got, I cooked the meals. I embraced the music. Everything I could to help me feel connected. This broke any form of isolation I may have had in my life. So it was really a win-win situation. So ancestors, whether they're here in the physical realm, whether they're still represented here in the physical realm, or whether they exist now in the spiritual realm, makes very little difference. It's a matter of sending energy and receiving energy. And we remember when we were sending energy, we're focused on one thing. We're going to put them right there, right in the middle, the mind's eye. And we're going to put them there and we're going to focus on them. And what we're doing then is we're sending them energy through the aura out into the spiritual realm that they can receive that energy. And when they receive it, what do grandparents do? Well, they return it, of course. They give us big hugs and maybe little scruffs on the head. They are thrilled to see us and thrilled to be with us. Why? Because we're the answer to their prayers. Remember that. You are the answer to your ancestors' prayers. So, think about it. Embrace our ancestry. James, I hope this helps you, and I hope this kind of provides for you that piece of intellect that you needed to move along in your spiritual journey. As always, each Wednesday night, we're here at 6:30 p.m. Alaska time. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock a.m. Alaska time, and we'll be talking about another subject that near and dear to getting that energy going for the day, hopefully providing for you a jolt of energy that you can use to propel yourself forward through your evolutionary path. So hopefully it all helps. All right, my friends, I wish you the very best remainder of Wootens Day. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I look so forward to seeing you first thing tomorrow morning. Alaska anyway, on any of these channels, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, or New Reality TV, whatever it is, join us, like, follow, and subscribe us. You won't be disappointed. We'll continue our journey of understanding our spiritual path. So I wish you the very best evening, and we will see you again tomorrow morning. Love and light, my friends.
Been watching for Felina's Belly Snake, a special production of Whispers of the Norse. Brought to you by the Alaska Ulfhefnar in South Central Alaska. Guidance and wisdom, courtesy of an ancient Celtic Norse shaman. Thank you so much for joining us today.